Thank you, Ms. Riley. We're live. Good evening and welcome councillors, executive leadership team, community members and council staff to tonight's ordinary council meeting. My name is Councillor Tim Driley and I'm the Mayor of the Hepburn Shire Council. Hepburn Shire Council acknowledges the Dja Dja Wurrung as the traditional owners of the lands and waters on which we live and work. On these lands, Jarrah have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We recognise their resilience through dispossession and it is a testament to their continuing culture and tradition, which is strong and thriving. We also acknowledge the neighbouring traditional owners, the Wurundjeri to our southeast and the Wadawurrung to our southwest, and pay our respect to all Aboriginal people, their culture and law. We acknowledge their living culture and the unique role they play in the life of this region. I now invite councillors to stand and read the councillor's statement of commitment. We, the councillors of Hepburn Shire, declare that we will undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interest of the community and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the Code of Good Governance so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of Hepburn Shire. Tonight's council meeting will be conducted in person and virtually. In line with current state government requirements, all those present in person were required to provide evidence of COVID-19 vaccination or a valid medical exemption. In the spirit of open, transparent and accountable governance, the meeting is being live streamed on Council's Facebook page and you will be able to view the proceedings of the meeting, councillor deliberations and voting. The meeting is also being recorded and will be made available on Council's website as soon as practicable after the meeting. In accordance with Chapter 6, Section 3 of our governance rules, a person, including any representative of the media, must not operate photographic, audio or video recording equipment or any other recording device at any council meeting without first obtaining the consent of the chairperson. I also remind everyone that local government decision-making, unlike state and federal government, does not afford the benefit of parliamentary privilege and hence no protection is afforded to councillors and council officers for comments made during meetings which are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. I'd like now to introduce council officers who are present in this council meeting. We have Mr. Bradley Thomas to my left, Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Andrew Burgess, Director of Organisational Services, Ms. Lee McCallum, Director of Community and Development on the screen, Mr. Bruce Lucas, Director of Infrastructure and Delivery over here, and Mr. Chris White, Manager ICT, Ms. Rebecca Smith, Acting Manager Governance and Risk. Mr. Thomas, do we have any apologies for tonight's meeting?
Through you, Mayor, there are no apologies for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Declarations of conflict of interest. As required at any other meeting of council, councillors must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when the item is presented to council. Councillors will be required to leave the meeting and return when the item has been resolved. Throughout the meeting, if a councillor realises that they have an interest, they can declare it at that point and follow the same procedure. Councillors, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare? Yes, Councillor Harding.
Yeah, I have a conflict of interest for item 14.1.
And the nature of that conflict?
The general one?
Thank you.
Sorry, it's just a general conflict of interest. I'm applying for leave. Sorry? I'm applying for leave.
Oh,
yeah.
Officers that are present, I now ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented tonight.
No conflicts.
No conflicts.
And confirmation of previous minutes. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us to adopt meeting minutes from council's previous council meetings. recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 15th of February 2022, as previously circulated to councillors, be confirmed. I'm in search for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Henderson and a seconder. Thank you. Councillor Halliday. Anyone to speak to the motion? All those in favour? Anyone against, sorry? Councillor Wood against and, sorry, I didn't actually get everyone else in favour. So 6 in favour, Councillor Hood against. The motion is carried. Notices of motion. There are no notices of motion that have been submitted for tonight's meeting. Item 7, items of urgent business. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion to admit the items of urgent business into council's agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there any items that a councillor wishes to admit to urgent business? No, we'll move on to item 8. Item 8, it's a presentation of councillor reports, and I'd like to present my report. This past month for me has focused a lot on the importance of sustainable development and fostering resilience in our communities. So much has happened and is beginning to happen again now that our communities open up again, the year gets into full swing and our events calendar gears into action with a renewed vigour. However, for some people, this momentum has been tempered by the need to pursue an ongoing recovery course following our 2 major weather events. I'm pleased to have been involved in Sustainable Hepburn Community Reference Group sessions in Creswick as we look to the serious issues of climate change mitigation and adaptation, addressing biodiversity loss and waste minimisation and circular economy strategies. In that same room at another time, I attended an excellent session run by Dr. Robert Gordon on recovering from the trauma of disaster-related events. As part of the storm recovery process in Creswick, we've been running community drop-in sessions to receive input and review what worked and what did not work as a result of the January flood event. This feedback will help better prepare us for the future and take action to mitigate the increasing effects of climate change-driven weather events. Community resilience is at the forefront of the strong opposition being mounted because of the proposed overgrounding route and location of the Western Victorian Transmission Line project and the terminal station. I was proud to be able to speak at the community meeting at Kingston Showgrounds to highlight how unsustainable it is to put these lines through prime agricultural land with such little community support on many levels. We did, however, find strong community desire coming out of the draft Hepburn Aquatic Strategy released this month for an accessible and modern indoor aquatic facility in the Shire. Pop-up sessions have been happening this month to receive community feedback on the draft. Breaking the bias and sustainability were the themes for International Women's Day this year. Our local event was well attended and received, and we heard inspiring words from women leaders, including worthy honour roll inductee Joanne Tapp. I spoke on the need for men to stand up in solidarity with women to continue breaking their own biases and around gender equality and the need to proactively address the prevalence of an entrenched toxic masculinity. On a celebratory note at the end of the month, I was thrilled to be asked to open Chill Out Festival 25th Jubilee LGBTIQA+ community event last weekend and to walk with staff in the parade on the Sunday. Chill Out is our largest Shire event and alongside providing a welcome boost to our local economy, it was a wonderfully inclusive and diverse expression of queer country pride. I'm pleased we can consider appointing 6 community members tonight to our inaugural LGBTIQA+ advisory committee. I also note that we are considering the complex problem of transitioning out of direct service delivery of council-controlled aged and disability care services. I wish to assure the community that whatever decision is made tonight, that councillors and staff have gone to great lengths to explore and engage with both experts and the community on what would provide the best outcomes for some of the most vulnerable members of our community, and that we are committed to seeing and advocating for a continuing quality service into the future. I now call on Councillor Jen Bray from Birch Ward to give her report.
Thank you, Mayor Dryly. I'll be tabling my report. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things from the last month. I was really privileged to be able to go along to the Youth Soundshell event for Chill Out on Saturday. One of the highlight events for me was to hear and see our young queer young people in action in that community. They also helped to organise the day with bands and panels and speakers, and it was amazing to hear them speak so confidently about their own experiences and the challenges they face every day. And it looks like there'll be some ongoing Soundshell Saturdays for young people over the next 4 weeks at Mineral Springs in Hepburn. So that'll be local young bands playing there on Saturdays from 3 p.m. So that's exciting too. I also attended Dr. Rob Gordon's excellent talk, helping those who've been impacted by the Creswick floods. And I have been involved in ongoing sustainable Hepburn workshops with our community, which included a tour of our council's composting facility. There are great ideas emerging from our community and the project is shaping up really well. I also attended the Stop AusNet's Towers Community Day at Kingston, and noted there was a strong show of community support and strong voices speaking on the day. Hepburn Shire are advocating to state, federal government and bodies and AusNet to go back to the drawing board and rethink this project. And finally, I was delighted to attend the International Women's Day Heather Mutimer Honour Roll Awards, and congratulations to Joanne Pegg, Principal of Ballardo Primary School and Martial Arts Black Belt, for her well-deserved induction onto the roll.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Hewitt from Birchwood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to start my report this evening by acknowledging Annie Stewart, who is leaving Daylesford after 31 years in the community. Many of you will know Annie. She's a storyteller. She was our International Women's Day storyteller for 5 years. She was on the Primary School Council as president for 9 years, 5 years on the Swiss Italian Festa, Words in Winter, and has worked on our Reconciliation Advisory Group in its first iteration. Annie also established the after-school care, was central in establishing after-school care in Daylesford. So there's many things that she's contributed to our community. She's served the community well, and I'm sure you'll all join with me, councillors, in wishing her well for the next stage of her life. The focus for me this month has been on sustainable Hepburn. Like Councillor Bray, Councillor Dryly and Councillor Halliday, I've been part of the working group with particularly in the area of biodiversity, and I acknowledge the wealth of knowledge that we have in the Shire and those citizens who've come forward to contribute to the sustainable Hepburn strategy. I'm pleased to let you know that part of biodiversity was acknowledged by Chill Out in its Grove of Gratitude with the planting of the sedge plants on Thursday up at Lake Daylesford, which will encourage not only recognising those members of the LGBTQIA+ community who've made an enormous contribution to that community, but in an ongoing sustainable way by providing an environment that will help, as I understand it, increase the prevalence of a very rare butterfly. It's events like Chill Out, as Councillor Dryly said, the largest in our Shire, or smaller ones like the Glen Lyon and District Pony Club horse trials that I attended earlier in the month, with over 120 entries that add to the lifeblood of the Shire and help our economy and help support options and development that people have. In that vein, I also, along with some other fellow councillors, attended the Central Goldfields UNESCO World Heritage Bid, which is progressing slowly but surely. I had the honour I was asked by the International Women's Day Committee, Councillor Simpson and Councillor Henderson, to chair the International Women's Day celebration here at the Town Hall. And it was certainly inspiring to hear all the speakers. Claire Keeley, with her approach to developing services in a vulnerable community, West services in that area of Melbourne. Joanne Pegg, who was inducted onto the International Women's Day Honour Roll, Heather Mutimer International Women's Day Honour Roll, and the young women, Lucy Muscat and Alice Dennis, who stood up and spoke about their goals for the future. And it's important for us to listen to what young people want, but to also know what women have achieved and the battles and the way they've fought the issues to get us to the point that we are now. I'd like to also acknowledge the Shire officers who did a great job fixing the path around Lake Dalesford that was well used over the weekend. So in addition to that, I've attended, as you all have, all the councillor briefings and meetings, the ongoing work with the Dalesford Hospital Upgrade Committee, the Gender Equity Advisory Committee International Women's Day breakfast, and as always, many meetings and contacts with residents about the various issues that council can help them with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Henderson from Creswick Ward, give you a report.
Councillor Halliday next.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Halliday, excuse me. Cameron Ward.
Yeah. I didn't print my report, so apologies for holding the laptop. So firstly, I wanted to talk about tonight. I'm very, very excited that we're finally voting on appointing members to the LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee. The motion was initially put up in February 2021 and the funding was approved in June. So it's taken a little while, but we're finally here and there'll be the first meeting in the next month. So that's really exciting. This month, I've also attended Sustainable Hepburn on the 2 Saturdays with the working groups with the community. And it's been really amazing and inspiring to hear all the ideas coming from the community. And I'm feeling like it's going to be a really worthwhile and productive process, and hopefully we'll get some really amazing outcomes coming out of it. So that's really exciting. I've also attended the Clunes Quick Shear, which is a great community event, bringing everyone together and I guess celebrating some very skilled shearers. A bit jaw-dropping really, how quickly they can shear a sheep. I also attended the Western Transmission Line gathering in Kingston, which was also quite inspiring. It really, when I hear the community and see how passionate they are, I really feel like we do have a chance of stopping the transmission lines and hopefully going back to the start and trying again with a more community-focused investigative process. And I wanted to congratulate everyone who's involved in that, and it was a really successful event. The International Women's Day Honour Roll event was fantastic. Congratulations, Joanne. And I wanted to say to those young people, if you're watching, you were the highlight of the night for me. The performance and talks from the 3 young women from Dalesford High were just really inspiring and just beautiful to see such strong women coming up through our community. I've also, as you probably all know, been very heavily involved in volunteering at Chill Out Festival, and it was an amazing weekend, and it was really, really exciting to see the street full again after 2 years of COVID. It was just really lovely to see the whole community out there and everyone enjoying the vibrancy that Chill Out brings to the town. And finally, I wanted to let everyone know that I am pregnant and I will be going on maternity leave at the end of the month. So I've applied for 3 months and I'm hoping to come back to duties after that. So in the meantime, if anyone has any queries, Tim Dryly will be your man while I'm away. But yeah, that's about it from me. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Halliday. Next 3 months. Councillor Henderson. Thank you, Creswick Ward.
Mayor, well, I don't want to risk repeating what everyone said, but sometimes that has to happen, so I can save some time and be a bit brief. I'd like to give special thanks to our International Women's Day Heather Mutimer Women's Honour Roll Committee. I was excluding myself from that. And also to Councillor Ewart, who was asked to MC the event. And the reason for that was because a little known fact is that she's actually on the Victorian Women's Honour Roll. So there was a reason behind that. So that was important. The event went very well, and people who attended thought that the special effort of Bridget O'Brien and Rebecca Pedretti greatly added to the event and the way that they dressed the hall up. The importance of this event to our Shire must not be understated. I attended a meeting of farmers at Mount Prospect to get an on-ground perspective of the impacts of the AusNet infrastructure upon our landscape and the farmers involved along the route. I also took Martha Haylett, the newly endorsed Labor candidate for Ripon, on a tour of various farms and met with quite a number of farmers who all had different issues with what was being imposed upon them. I was pleasantly surprised during the visit to meet many young women who are emerging new generation farmers, and their knowledge, despite their young age of farming, the issues that impact future viability. Also a bit amazed at the sort of machinery they were able to drive and the technology that went with it, the GPS monitoring and so on. There was also a very well attended gathering at the Kingston Showgrounds, which some of my colleagues and our executive officer attended. Were all manner of reasons why this power line in its current form should not go ahead. These range from farm impacts to the effect upon tourism and the upcoming consideration of the World Heritage bid being discussed, and that's the World Heritage bid relating to our goldfields between Ballarat and Bendigo. The recovery from recent storms is ongoing. There's still plenty of problems for residents, both in our towns and rural areas. I did attend a drop-in session at Newland, which gave farmers the opportunity to come together to discuss issues and also find out what services are available. Quite often, people in the towns tend to think that the farmers just get along with it, just get on with it. And sometimes that's very difficult when they've lost so much and they're impacted by power lines as well. So there's a lot going on in the lives of these farmers at the moment. From the number of residents who ring up, the issues will need of the storms will need ongoing attention for quite some time, I suspect. A lot of very distressed people out there in the community, Mr. Mayor. So we do need to pay attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Hood from Colyvan Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I will comment on 2 positives, 1 negative, and make an observation on perspective. I was delighted to see Joanne Pegg, Principal of Bellato Primary School, inducted into the Heather Mutimer Honour Roll at the International Women's Day function, as we all were. The award fittingly recognises Joanne's remarkable contribution to inclusive learning, and she is a most deserving winner of this honour. Trentham resident Sandy Sheltman had her photojournalism work on storm recovery interviews with local residents accepted by the State Library of Victoria. This follows the National Library of Australia last year accepting her similar work on COVID lockdowns and experiences. Both sets of interviews will be permanently on display for posterity. Sandy has also recently been engaged by the State Library of Victoria for ongoing work on the impact of COVID on regional communities. Of course, her work was funded in part by council. And through that process, they generated a $2,000 donation to the CFA through the production of a calendar. Regrettably, I must also note that the residents of Trentham and surrounding areas have endured 12 unplanned interruptions to power supply in the first 10 weeks of 2022. Such disruption causes havoc to day-to-day lives, to working from home and running a business. It is sincerely hoped that privatised power companies invest more substantially in making their infrastructure more robust and reliable. On an entirely different level, I cannot escape the world around me, and nor would I wish to. As an avid user of credible media sources, and as I go about my responsibilities as a councillor, I'm constantly reminded of the concept of perspective. Australia's death toll from COVID is fast approaching 5,600. In Ukraine, 564 innocent unarmed civilians, including 41 children, have been slaughtered and tens of thousands rendered homeless. Closer to home, 22 people have lost their lives in the Queensland, New South Wales floods. And in recent months, 12 people, including 4 children, have died in Victoria while waiting for an ambulance. These tragic realities hang over us and shape our frame of mind. They also serve to remind us of the need for perspective.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Councillor Simpson, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Please see my report that I've tabled.
Okay. Councillors, I have a recommendation that council receives and notes the mayor's and councillors' reports. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Henderson. Councillor Hewitt. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the Chief Executive Officer's report. Mr Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. My CEO's report for the month of March is included in the agenda, and also like to acknowledge all the various events that councillors have attended over the last month. Also, I'd like to acknowledge that fantastic work of staff, often behind the scenes, that go to these events and really make them work on a really smooth basis. So thank you to all those staff. It's fantastic to see us back in person for a council meeting. Might be a small gallery tonight. I'm sure that'll increase over coming months, but fantastic to see us reopening as a community, as an organisation, and across the state and country. So great to getting back to some normality, and we saw that particularly over the last few weekends with events as well. Councillor Halliday, on behalf of the organisation, can I wish you well for the impending birth and hope everything goes absolutely smoothly. And we look forward to having you back on deck with a little munchkin running around as well. So it will be exciting times for us here at council over the coming months. As I said, report is tabled of all the various events that we've been attending and running. But I just also wanted to a bit of a shout out to really explain to councillors and the community that across Victoria, Australia, local government is experiencing a shortage of staffing at the moment. There's a number of reasons for this, not least in part the COVID pandemic and people reassessing the way they live their lives. That means for us two things. There's a number of job opportunities available, and I encourage any interested parties to reach out to our website for those items. But importantly, it also means that in some occasions and some services at the moment across council, we're a little bit slower to respond than we would perfectly like. Acknowledge that we are working almost around the clock as quickly as we can, putting different things in place, bringing new resources into place, contractors where we can, but really just wanted to call out that there is some delays. We're trying to work as quickly as possible and really appreciate our customers' sort of respect and working with us over the coming weeks and months as we go through this challenging time. My officer's report is noted, and I make a recommendation that council receives and notes the CEO's report for March 2022.
Thank you, Mr Thomas. So the recommendation is that we receive the Chief Executive Officer's report for March 2022. I'm in search of a motion. Thanks, Councillor Bray, seconded Councillor Halliday. All those in favour, raise your hand. All those against, it's carried. Thank you. We're now moving on to public participation time. We have a number of questions that have been that I will read out in responses to questions taken on notice from the last ordinary meeting, and then read and respond to new questions received in accordance with Council's governance rules. Question 1's from Kay Powell. Last year, a group of concerned Glen Lyon residents met with council officers. The hamlet development was being further subdivided, and all we had to protect the town was a plan for the 1860s. Glen Lyon was way down the list of future planning. We quoted the wastewater management plan 2014, where council policy that states blocks under 4,000 square metres are high risk. We were told that specific plan was not incorporated, so not binding. It was clear from later council meetings that a vote by councillors endorsed a plan to make it binding. In combing through earlier minutes, I discovered the wastewater management plan was endorsed by a council vote. What is the process by which council plans become binding policy? And my response is the domestic wastewater management plan isn't an incorporated document into the planning scheme and sits as an independent council reference document. A council plan is a document of significant reference that officers are to refer to when providing advice or making recommendations or determinations. The formal process when determining appropriate lot sizes will be when council commences the Glen Lyon structure planning process. Following the completion of the structure plan, a planning scheme amendment will be required to incorporate the findings into the scheme, which will be binding. And question 2 is from Kay Powell as well, and it is the wastewater management plan 2014 a binding policy, and if not, why not? My response is the domestic wastewater management plan is not a binding policy under the planning scheme. However, it is an adopted agreement between council and the relevant water authority as to how wastewater management can be appropriately dealt with within our local government area. The 2014 wastewater management plan is currently being reviewed by council and water authorities with the intentions of having a new wastewater management plan in place shortly. Council officers are required to refer the wastewater management plan to wastewater management in Hepburn Shire. And question 3 is from Gillian Treblecock and Gina Lyons. So this question has been asked both by Gillian Treblecock and Gina Lyons. During the community engagement process, will the community be advised details of the letter of instruction to valuers tendering the valuation of the RECs? And my response is no. The community engagement process is to seek community comment on the proposed sale of the building or not. The process for sale, should council determine to proceed, will be in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020. Question 4 is also from Gillian Treblecock. Is council interested in exploring the establishment of a social enterprise cafe as an initiative to support young people locally? And my response is, council is currently developing a youth strategy which will consider employment and training opportunities for young people, along with the potential to establish a youth council and youth advisory committee. The option of a social enterprise cafe as an initiative to support young people locally could be referred to a youth council or youth advisory committee for consideration. Question 5 is from Gina Lyons. Will the letter of instruction to value the RECs require the approved valuer to include, but not limited to, the following? A, value the property as is, and B, value the property on completion as planned with a lease to council for, say, 10 years, plus the option of 2 by 5 year extensions, thereby providing bookend valuations? My response is, we sought formal valuations during 2021 as part of considering available options for the project. These included external and independent valuations for several options, including the value of the building as is, the value of the building as is with a pre-commitment to lease back, the value of the building at completion based on plans provided with a pre-commitment for lease back. The updated property valuation to be obtained as part of the proposed sale of the building will be for the value of the building as is in accordance with the council's decision. Question 6 is from Kate McRae. Will the council take this opportunity to take Daylesford's heritage Vincent Street to a new level by protecting the Rex building? And my response is Vincent Street, Daylesford is protected by a heritage overlay under the planning scheme, and this heritage overlay includes the front facade of the Rex building. Any additional protections would be considered as part of the future planning permit application received by council. Question 6 is also from Kate McRae. Will the council make sure the Rex's heritage standing in the planning scheme, both internal and external, are respected and save it either in private hands or in public hands from the ravages of the bulldozer? And my response is Vincent Street, Daylesford is protected by a heritage overlay under the planning scheme, and this heritage overlay includes the front facade of the Rex building. No additional protections are proposed. Any additional protections would be considered as part of any future planning permit application received by council. Question 8 is from Jennifer Beecham. Has the council considered the option of combining visitor information with the library, which is done very successfully in South Australia, or in Victoria in Sale, where it is also combined with the art gallery? My response is no, not at this stage. However, it is an option that could be explored in the scoping of a new project to accommodate council services as part of the decision at the 23rd of November 21 council meeting. Question 9 is also from Jennifer Beecham. How many staff need to be relocated to other locations than currently used? My response is all staff will continue to operate from current sites and no other locations are being considered for immediate needs. It is noted that council will be considering accommodation options as part of scoping a new project as per the decision of council at the 23rd of November 21 council meeting. Question 10 is from Edwin Beecham. Has the council considered setting up a shop to promote local artisan and unique products and produce from the area as is done in the Barossa Maid and Food Pantry and in other shires in Victoria and South Australia? Would the council consider the Rex complex as a suitable location for such a proposal? And my response is the Artisan Agriculture Project is in its preliminary stages of undertaking a scoping exercise with local producers, facilitated by Open Network, Food Network, to consider what a Hepburn food and produce hub may look like. This will include what the governance model might be and who would run such an enterprise should it be considered a feasible option. In terms of the Rex as a possible location for such a proposal, at this stage, this has not been considered as council have determined to commence a process for the sale of this building. If the building is retained by council, this may be a further considered. Question 11 is from Julian McDonald. 1A, how many council staff have unsatisfactory working conditions in terms of OH&S, and where are these staff currently located? 1B, how many council staff require accommodation? What department are they from? 1C, as there is now a trend to working from home, how will this impact staff office requirements? My response is that it is acknowledged that many staff are working in non-ideal conditions with poor amenities and a lack of disability access, which doesn't meet current day standards. All staff are currently accommodated within existing sites. All staff will continue to operate from current sites and no other locations are being considered for immediate needs. It is noted that council will be considering accommodation options as part of scoping a new project as per decision of council at the 23rd of November 21 council meeting. Council has adopted a flexible working home policy that is available to staff dependent on operational needs. Question 12 is Julian McDonald again, and the question is, what additional spaces does the library require and what additional services are envisaged to be incorporated into a new library facility? And my response is, The Daylesford Library is currently operating all library services from its current site. Expansion of the library to accommodate future growth will be further considered as part of a new project to accommodate council services as per the decision at the 23rd of November 21 council meeting. I now move on to 9.2, which is requests to address council. I have one request to address council and it's been received for tonight's meeting. I now invite Dr. Kerry Proctor to address council in relation to her petition for an off-lead dog park for Trentham. Thanks, Kerry. You've got 3 minutes.
I know.
Cheers.
Mayor, councillors and shire officers, Pat and I, who I'll ask to come up and speak in the last minute, represent a growing group of dog owners in Trentham and surrounding areas who've been meeting in the Market Street Reserve every morning and afternoon the last 3 years to exercise dogs off leash. When council erected signage in December stating that the dogs were required to be on leash in the only fenced area in the spaced area in Trentham, the distressing impact on those who use the park to safely exercise their dogs has been dramatic and paradoxically has galvanised the community. So in some ways we need to thank you for putting up the sign. This has led to collaborative meetings and communication with Councillor Brian Hood and also with Bruce Lucas to discuss the process for ensuring an off-leash dog area in Trentham. There's not enough time here to outline the benefits of these parks for both dog behaviour and the social and emotional health of dog owners, but this is now clearly evidence-based. We presented a memo to Bruce in early January that outlined the precedents set by other councils based on recognition of the positive impact on the behaviour and socialisation of dogs and the mental health of the owners. The contrast between our neighbouring shires and Hepburn is quite stark. This has been especially important since COVID and the ongoing impact of storm damage in the Trentham and surrounding areas. What the response to the signage has also highlighted for us is the unique and special connection to community for many who attend because they've got dogs. We would be happy to table that memo to council. That this petition, so we're presenting a petition, which I'm assuming you have copies of. This petition was signed in a 2-week period by over 440 people in a very small community. It was just in the last 2 weeks. It demonstrates very strong support for 2 outcomes to be adopted by council. The first one is a short-term compromise that council provide some times, preferably about 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night of assigned dedicated off-leash times at the reserve while a new location is being found for a permanent park. And we want a longer term commitment that funding be allocated in the next year's budget to provide land and establishment funds for a dedicated park. We're also very prepared to seek part funding through other means alongside council funding, but need the land allocated to do so. We're aware that this is consistent with the domestic animal policy currently being developed. We believe that support and demonstrated support for this petition reflects the changing profile of Trentham and believe the council support at this time for this community resource would be a positive gesture that we would continue to promote and publicise through both social media and local publications. I'd like Pat just very briefly to talk about the human side of this.
Have we got it?
We've got 1 minute.
20 seconds.
We'll give you a brief moment.
So can I just ask you?
Sorry.
I was not able to ask the question because I didn't find out about the aged care. This lady's able to get up and ask. about
Sorry,
the
just to explain this, she is actually on the list. So it's,
I really wanted to talk about aged care and I said. that
I'm sorry.
Someone else gets to talk to 2 people, one person's on the list. Sorry about that.
We do have a process for questions and we'll ask you not to interject during the meeting. Thank you. Okay.
I'm really, I suppose, the dog monitor at the park. I seem to be there most of the time with my 2 dogs. And really, we just wanted to touch on the impact that the park has had, not just for dogs, but for their owners as well. One in particular is a new dog to the group. It's an old dog, but it has a severe disability. And so it has to be carried into the park by its owners. The dog takes on a different being when it's in the park, on the ground, in a quiet place. The joy on the dog's face, as silly as it may sound, is pretty special. All the other dogs come up to see it, you know, do a bit, whatever. But importantly, it's more about the way the dog's parents feel. You know, they are carrying the dog around. They've managed the dog's very severe disability for 5 years.
We'll wind you up there just for fairness.
I just say a couple of more words. And for them to put the dog down and see her where she should be, which is in a pack of dogs, is just amazing to see the relief on their face. And that's just one of our stories.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So we do have a petition and it's been received ahead of tonight's meeting in relation to Off-Lead Dog Park in Trentham. And I thank you both for presenting tonight on this. The petition was received on the 15th of March 2022 and has been signed by 436 people. However, 225 signatures are invalid as complete addresses have not been provided or a surname. But this still leaves 211 valid signatures. And the petition reads, due to public demand, along with the number of dogs in Trentham and surrounding areas increasing dramatically, we are petitioning the Hepburn Shire Council for a dedicated, safe and enclosed dog off-leash park. Currently, many of us have been exercising our dogs at the Market Street Reserve, the only enclosed area in Trentham, and for many, walking distance from their homes. We are very responsible dog owners who pick up after our dogs. The council recently put signage up to prevent dogs from entering the reserve. We are petitioning council to provide some dedicated off-leash times at the reserve while funding is found for a new location, and to take seriously the need for a dog-safe area as soon as possible for our community. Now, the recommendation is that Council 1 receives and notes the petition, 2 refers the request for a dedicated off-leash times at the Market Street Reserve to the Chief Executive Officer for consideration, and 3 refers the request for future funding to be considered as part of the 22-23 council budget. I'm in search of a mover of a motion. Councillor Hood, and you're moving the...
Move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. And secondly, Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Hood, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, briefly, thanks, Mr Mayor. As councillors, as we've heard tonight, there's overwhelming public support for the need for a safe off-leash dog park for dog exercising. And as important as that is, as Pat touched on, this is also about mental health and people's welfare, because not only do the dogs socialise, but so too do the people. And coming out of COVID and storms, and even just ongoing, that is terribly important. I can attest to the fact that the group are very responsible dog owners. They currently use the Market Street Reserve. They do so in a safe and compliant way. In speaking to this motion, I would emphasise that the short-term solution obviously is the need for some dedicated, allocated time in the morning and afternoon where they can safely go about exercising the dogs. And secondly, the long-term solution is to provide a fenced-off area somewhere in Trentham, and that we include that in the budget for next year. So I highly recommend this motion, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Councillor Hewitt.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. In seconding the motion, I thank the petitioners for bringing this to our attention. I would support the motion, but also add that the concerns raised by the people of Trentham, I'm sure, are shared by other residents in other towns around the Shire where there are not safe, off-lead, secure dog parks. And it's certainly something that's worthy of us considering. But I congratulate and thank the petitioners for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Would anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? No. And in that case, take the item to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. We're moving on to item 11 now, which is 11.1, and it's proposed special charge scheme for our Solar Savers program in 21-22, and the Director of Community and Development. So to introduce this, we have Councillor Bray will introduce the report. Thanks, Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Mayor Riley. Item 11.1 is a proposed special charge scheme for the Solar Savers program for 2021-22. Just to give you some background, the Hepburn Shire Council is making solar power more accessible to low-income households through the Solar Savers program. It's among the first programs in Australia, enabling households to install solar photovoltaic systems, solar PV, and pay them off through a special charge scheme over 8 years. The council has committed through its council plan for 2021-25 and other programs that it supports to not only reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also to support those most vulnerable in our community to climate change impacts and to the increasing energy costs. So this project is specifically aimed at pensioner households who are more vulnerable to increasing energy costs. This report recommends that council initiate the declaration of a special charge scheme under section 163 of the Local Government Act 1989 for the purpose of defraying expenses relating to the provision of solar energy systems on residential properties participating in the Solar Saver scheme. So an a special charge on the rates for those participating in the scheme. The residential properties included in the proposed scheme have nominated to participate and have signed an agreement based on the quoted cost of the solar energy system property. The total cost of the works is calculated at $43,595.29, of which the property owners will contribute the entirety over an 8-year period. So just to clarify, what we're talking about is council will pay the upfront costs for the scheme, for them to have the solar panels installed. The residents who've elected to be involved in the scheme pay that off through their rates with a special charge over a period of 8 years. And their savings on their solar costs are what will go towards paying off that charge.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Look, I have a recommendation.
Any questions?
Oh, sorry, any questions? Any other questions? Report? No. So I have an officer's recommendation before me. It is 3 pages long, so I won't read it all out. It is in the agenda for this evening. I am in search of a move of a motion.
One question.
Beg your pardon?
I did have one question.
Oh, sorry. Well,
Sorry, my question was how many members of our community are taking advantage of the scheme? Is that-
Here with us. There we go.
The agenda.
Agenda is neat.
Yeah.
So, I think it's 8 members of the community for this time. That is slightly down on previous, previous rounds that we've been through. We think COVID and things sort of appealed with that, but it's a program that likely will recommend to councillors for inclusion in next year's budget as well.
thank you, Mr. Thomas. Now, that's all the questions. So I'll go back to the motion. I'm searching for a mover of the motion. Councillor Henderson, you're moving the recommendation?
Recommendation.
Yep, and I have a seconder. Councillor Bray, would you like to talk to the motion, Councillor Henderson?
No. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief because what can we say about such a good scheme? This allows the most vulnerable in our community to access what those of us who are a bit better heeled can have access to. Just to give you an example, I've got solar panels on my place and I rely heavily on electric pumps and so on, and my bill was zero for the last quarter. So I can just imagine what that means on a fixed income when they all sorts of electricity bills ranging from hundreds of dollars upwards, sometimes not being able to afford even to turn a heater on or an air conditioner on because they can't afford the electricity. Well, this gives them a new lease of life, as the saying goes. They're able to access something that will save them money. When people are on fixed incomes, they don't have access, Mr. Mayor, to the ability to go out and earn some more money to pay if their electricity bill goes up, as they always tend to be. They can't just go out and do an extra job or get some extra income. Their income is fixed, so this is a massive boost to their bottom line. And I commend this to us. It's something the council measly, and it is a measly $43,500 to make the lives of people so much better. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson. Councillor Bray, would you like to speak to the motion? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion or for or against? No. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It's carried unanimously. We're moving on to item 12.1, which is aged care reform update. And
Absent.
as I was saying, we're moving on to 12.1, which is the aged care reform update. Director of Community and Development. Mr. Thomas, would you please introduce the report?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We're actually going to try the technology out and we'll see how we go. And I'll hand over to Director of Community Development, Ms. McCallum. If the technology doesn't work, I'll take over and introduce the report.
Okay.
Thank you through you, Mayor, and I trust that the IT will be suitable, but please let me know if it's not. Councillors, in November last year, Council determined to proceed with an in-principle decision to exit service delivery in Commonwealth Home Support Package, CHSP, and Victorian Home and Community Care for Young People program, which is a HAC PYP program. The in-principle decision enabled a number of steps to be undertaken, and since November, officers have heavily consulted and engaged with clients, staff and the community, and an EOI process to identify a values-aligned provider for recommendation to the Commonwealth has been undertaken. Council, the outcomes of the consultation are included in the officer's report. After consideration of feedback, the officer's recommendation is that Council proceed to confirm that it will commence the transition out of funded home-based and community-based services for older residents. Councillors, the report is before you this evening for your consideration.
Now, would anyone have any questions to Ms. McCallum on the report? Councillor Bray?
Thanks, Ms. McCallum, for that. I have two questions. I'm just wondering how, if Council makes a decision tonight to exit aged care for services, how we can ensure that there'll be no loss of quality of care for our clients, our very valued older members of our community. How can we ensure that there will be no loss of quality for that care?
Thanks, Councillor Bray. There are a couple of elements in response to that question. In the report that is presented to Council this evening, there are a set of principles that have and will continue to be applied through the transition. The EOI process, so they will be very closely followed. And the second element to that is that with the decision that was made in November, an EOI process was undertaken to identify a value-aligned provider. And as part of that process, it was very clear around the criteria in relation to ensuring that the client's service was not disrupted and that the quality of the service provided to our community is retained to its current expectations in relation to service quality. Councillors, I would also say that the staff that work within the Community Life team and are currently supporting our older community members will continue to do so in the transition, but also in relation to the future positive ageing approach to service delivery as well. So I can assure council and the community that we will be working very hard to support our community and to ensure that the quality of service remains at a very high level.
Thank you, Ms McCallum. Would anyone else like to ask a question for a report? No. Councillor Henderson?
Yes, through the Mayor. I note the answer was that we will be ensuring, and I'm just wondering to what extent we can ensure something once we opt out, doesn't work out. Is there any option to opt back in and do this at a future date? I suspect I know the answer to the latter. And how will we fund these things that are ongoing? I see in the report that we will, item 4, we will ensure certain things that we're going to have other programs in place. And we have been funding things out of funds that we've had as yet unspent. If we opt out of this, we will not have those funds to draw upon. Is there any guarantee that we'll obtain funding for our positive ageing strategy that will allow us to, in fact, employ people to look after those people who are mentioned in item 4? And will we have money to fund those programs and fund those officers without touching the council budget? Because I believe there will have to be a council budget item. Maybe I'm wrong, but we won't have the same place to fund that from. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. Yep, I'll continue on and hoping that the IT is clear. Through you, Mayor, Councillor Henderson, in response to your question around opting back in, the officer's report does indicate that on 30th of June 2022, our current funding agreement with Commonwealth and the state will cease. And there is a decision or an option to take an extension for an additional 12 months. At the 30th of June 2023, the current HAC PYP and CHSP programs will come to a conclusion, and that will be replaced with a new program, a new national program, which is a support at home program. In relation to opting back in, at the point of the new program being introduced, the Commonwealth program, there will be a competitive tender process at that time where the Commonwealth will seek for organisations who are adequately able to deliver a broad range of services to the community. So in short, in relation to opting back in, what I would say, Councillor Henderson, is that by resolution of council, once a decision is made, then that decision will be implemented. It's highly unlikely that council, well, they may, but it's a council, I wouldn't imagine, would entertain a re-entry into the market at that point, other than through the competitive process that would be available come the 30th of June 2023. In relation to the future funding of any programs or services and staff to support the positive ageing strategy, yes, they will be a consideration for council for future funding, and there is currently a ratepayer contribution that council makes towards the delivery of the program, but there would be a consideration for council in the upcoming budget as to what they would be looking to fund in the future.
Thank you, Ms McCallum. Other questions, councillors? Councillor Hood?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Ms McCallum, the report before us proposes council exiting a number of services.
Mhm.
If that were to occur, could you give a brief outline of what services would council continue to provide to the aged sector?
The resolution that is before council this evening does have council exiting the majority of Commonwealth Home Support Program services and HAC PYP. It is, council does have the option to, as part of the conversation with the Commonwealth and state, should they wish to go back to the Commonwealth and state and request the ongoing funding for the social support elements of the CHSP be retained, along with the senior citizens groups, should council wish to pursue that as an option.
Thank you.
I will
Councillor
add,
Bray? Yep.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor. In addition to that, I will also add that council is currently in the process of undertaking the positive ageing strategy, which community members may be aware of and councillors will be aware of. The work that will come out of the positive ageing strategy will then inform future service and program delivery as well for our older people. Once that is concluded, I'll be in a better position to advise further on that one, Councillor Hood.
Thank you. Councillor Bray?
Thank you, Mayor. I've heard from many members of the community, and I'm sure there are people here today who would also like to speak but aren't able to. They have concerns, they're worried. The Commonwealth Government, which is a Liberal National Government at the moment, is rolling out these reforms. There are some in the community who don't feel that a privatised healthcare service is appropriate. Even a not-for-profit, for some, doesn't sit well based on their models. And we know that there's an election coming up in May. And I suppose my question is, for those who are wondering why we have to make this decision now in March, why would we not wait till May to see if there's any change in the way that a potential new government might address this issue, and if there's any potential for a different way of rolling something out? Obviously, there are changes and reforms needed in the aged care sector, but I suppose people are wondering why we wouldn't wait till after the election to find out if anything is different. Why is the timing about making a decision at this council meeting tonight?
Thank you,
Through
Councillor.
you, Mayor. Thank you. Sorry, I've just got a bit of a delay. My apologies, Mayor, if I'm jumping in before you speak. Thank you, Councillor Bray. The reason that this decision is before council this evening is that the current agreement for the delivery of the age and disability services that I've mentioned will conclude at the 30th of June this year. In order to, should council make the decision to exit at 30th of June, there will be a process to work alongside both Commonwealth and state and with the client. So that will take some time, and that really only provides 3 months. 30th of June is a point in time. As I said, the current arrangements will finish. There is an extension that has been offered, but that extension will come with a range of changes to the way in which the program is delivered. one of which is a change in the funding arrangements, and the other is that there will need to be an investment in the delivery of the program, which will include increase in additional IT infrastructure as an example of that. So the reason that this is before council is that we do have a decision point that relates to the current funding agreement, which will cease at the 30th of June this year.
Thank you, Ms McCallum. Other questions from councillors? No. We do have a recommendation, officer's recommendation, which is in our public agenda. I'm now in search of a mover for a motion. Councillor Hewitt,
Yes,
you're moving.
yes, Mayor. I would like to move the officer's recommendation, but with two changes. Those two changes would be to a new point 4, which would be to, and I'll just read it out, seeks Commonwealth permission to continue to operate the following program under its agreement. A, Commonwealth Home Support Program, B, Sector Support and Development, and C, Senior Citizens Group. That then moves the numbers down from what's printed in the agenda. And to have a final point, point 15, Council will act as an advocate to the needs of the community and will hold accountable Commonwealth and state governments and the appointed home support providers for the delivery of quality services to the Hepburn community. So the officer's recommendation with those two changes.
And as we've seen on the screen here, is those two additional points, point 4 and point 15 to the officer's recommendation. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hood. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mayor. Let me start by saying that I acknowledge that the services that Council have provided to date have been generally very well received by the community. And I acknowledge, as Councillor Bray said, that there's a number of people who may be a little apprehensive about what any change, should it go through, might mean. As councillors, as you're aware, I've been a social worker in this field for 45 years. And it's with monotonous regularity, every 3 to 5 years, something comes up about service delivery to aged care. I can remember first being horrified when in aged care, vulnerable people were being bathed in kerosene to get rid of mites and lice. So there has been an ongoing problem. The recommendations by the Aged Care Royal Commission attempt to address some of the difficulties, the coordination problems, the difficulty people who move or all want to stay in their homes and they move into aged care services. What Council provides are entry-level services, Commonwealth home support packages. We've currently got just on 300 people in the Shire using that service. I'm advised by officers that 2 a week, or about a third over a year period, transition into home care packages. What that means is that they can no longer use council services. They have to move on to one of the levels of packages, which includes not just the services that are in the motion, but things like equipment. So clocks that can help people with dementia understand what day and time it is. Wheelchairs, equipment that helps them utilise their stove and cooking facilities. All of that's provided under home care packages, which we as a council are not able to deliver. They also, in home care packages, access other supports like counselling to help cope with the changes of dementia. Physiotherapy, podiatry, massages, those kinds of services which council as an entry-level service provider cannot do. and will not be able to do because, and also home nursing is provided there. So for those 1/3 of our clients that we support, that means currently that they've got to enter into a confusing multi-assessment, multi-provider opportunity. Now, we've heard that our current contract will end on the 22nd of June. We don't know. We anticipate that in June 2023, the Commonwealth will go ahead with those changes, but we don't know that they will. I think we have a major opportunity at the moment by transitioning out because people, when they need and want to stay at home, do end up on a continuum. I think we have a great opportunity to actually support this transition out, to find a values-aligned provider if we can, and to know that we're helping those people not have to tell their story to several different providers, to have people coming from all over the place or maybe not being able to come. That's my professional experience. It's also been my private experience, personal experience in the Shire with my mum, who did have fabulous services provided by the Shire. But we as a family were totally befuddled when we had to move to the home care packages. And that was with my social work background. I didn't know how to help her, where to go. She just got confused because she was getting invoices and comments from everywhere. I'd urge you to think about those people that will still have services. And part of the point 15 is to say that we can advocate and do what we can to make sure that that transition works. I urge you to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. I just need to remind members of the public that just to be respectful in your behaviour, that we do require courtesy and to be quiet during proceedings, and interjecting is or taking part in the debate is not appropriate. Councillor Hood.
Thank you, Mayor. In seconding this motion, I do so somewhat reluctantly. This is a complex area and it's a very important decision. We're faced in a position where the current federal government has changed the playing field radically, both operationally and in a funding sense. And for councils across Victoria, not just ourselves, we're effectively being pushed out of the game and we'll be ill-equipped as a provider going forward, particularly under the National Competition Policy and under the Competitive Neutrality Policy. The sort of subsidies that we currently apply to these services, which we do obviously quite willingly, we will not be able to do going forward. I am somewhat relieved that by making this decision now, we can seek to appoint a values-aligned successor, and we at least have that under our control now, as opposed to if we defer the decision to later. Our primary concern here must always be the aged people within our population, and unfortunately, we probably would not have been making a decision like this had it not been for federal government changes. But I believe it's in their best interest to make this decision now and to provide the suite of services. I suggest that the two modifications that Councillor Hewitt has made to the officer's recommendation strengthen that position, and I also endorse this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Would any other councillor like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Henderson, you're for or against the motion?
I'm going to speak against the motion, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, there's too many ifs, buts and maybes here. The one thing I know is for sure, that if we do accept an extension, we'll have much the same options. We're told that we'll be able to do all sorts of things and we'll have a say in the game. We'll only have a say until the middle of 2023. After that, we won't have any say. And the old saying is, if the greyhound didn't stop to sniff at the post, he might have caught the hare. I don't buy that one. The trouble is, we don't know what's going to happen after May. We might be able to crystal ball gaze, but who knows? We've seen governments before come to the brink, and how many extensions we've seen. This was going to happen years ago, but then someone blinked and they didn't change it, and they didn't change it. They didn't change it because there's a growing demographic of older people. And I heard the kerosene argument, well, and that's a very tragic thing, came out of the Royal Commission. Most of these things have happened in privately run homes and hostels, where the dollar is the most important thing and care is just to keep people alive and without getting noticed and fly under the radar when the inspections come. We all know what happens when the people come in and do a spot check. Everyone does the cleaning up, everyone does that, and all the staff are told what to say. Well, our people in our community are worth more than that. I know we've seen subsidies of something like 500,000 to 600,000. We won't get the funding. We will have to, if we're going to do anything that, like it says in 4.1, 4.2 to 3, the new item, we will have to find from our budget money because we won't have that funding from the council from the government. So we'll lose that funding and we'll have to find it out of our budget. And we all know, well, we might say it's going to cost us 260,000. I've seen lots of things around this shire and nothing ever costs what we think it's going to cost. And I think that we'll be spending the same amount of money into the future. I think there is a possibility of a change. And whilst there is a possibility, I want to give our older folk the best opportunity. And so I oppose this motion and I oppose it most strongly. And I accept my colleague, Councillor Ewart's had a long experience. Since we're talking about mothers, I had a mother too who was in the system with the Shire. And she had a wonderful experience. And she was perhaps one of the lucky ones, but I talk to people in the community and they all tell me that that's one of the very few things. They reckon we look after old people better than we fill potholes and pick up rubbish. That's what they tell me. So the one thing that we do well, we're going to get rid of it at the first opportunity. Carefully considered it, and I get that. And I thank the officers who put all this work together. Just to get out of its cost and consider it, it's cost us how much money? We've paid consultants, we've paid staff. But look at how we transition out. Maybe we should have kept our powder dry and not spent all that money and put it towards helping the old people. Because I think it's premature to get out and I oppose it quite strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Halliday, speaking
for the motion. Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very brief because the majority of my arguments are very similar to Councillor Hewitt's, but I wanted to add some additional points. I feel like the Rex decision, that prolonging this decision for another year just in case, or just to keep our options open, is unfair to people, the staff particularly, leaving them in this limbo. It will mean further investigations through council off first of time, and I feel like that's a waste of resources. And I think people deserve the certainty of a decision, not wondering for another year, are we or aren't we? Further to that, I wanted to say, in order for us to become a viable provider, to be able to provide all these services, it's a lovely idea, but it's not really viable. We're a council, we're not a health provider. We do not have the qualified staff to provide healthcare packages. And in order to get to that point, it would cost millions of dollars, which the council doesn't have. And I feel it is better that we pass it on to a provider that is going to be able to provide these services and the continuity of care, as Councillor Hewitt has already stated. So, yeah, for those reasons, I think that we're better off making a decision now, and everyone can hopefully transition to a new provider that is value aligned and can provide a fantastic service. Additionally, I wanted to comment that I do feel, since we do have a higher level of LGBTIQA plus community members, to me it's really important that the provider is value aligned in that respect. And I will be pushing for them to be the best possible supporters of our LGBTI community that they can be. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Would anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Bray.
Thanks, Mayor Drylie.
Speaking for the motion.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, the decision facing council tonight about our aged care service has been gut-wrenching for our community, for our staff, and for us as councillors trying to choose the best path forward. We're all aware of the crisis in aged care, as Councillor Hewitt has mentioned, and the findings of the Royal Commission were damning indeed. The need for more regulation, more funding, and a complete overhaul of the system were made perfectly clear in the Royal Commission final report. The reforms that the Commonwealth Government are bringing in will perhaps in part tackle some of these issues. Current aged care systems will be replaced by a single program. Residents will receive care according to their assessed needs and pay according to their income. And the new system will give individuals more choice and control over their care. But this is where it becomes difficult for councils. This new system that's being proposed will mean that small rural councils like Hepburn Shire would need to fundamentally change the way we operate to effectively become a private aged care provider in the competitive market, on the one hand, or else to opt out. Hepburn Shire may decide that being a player in the aged care Olympics is just a bit out of our league. If we do decide to opt out, we must make absolutely sure that we do not leave our very valued clients, our older residents, in the lurch. We have the option to interview and to select a provider that we have checked fits with our values. One that might offer our residents a locally based service, one that will not suddenly put the fees up on our clients, one that has proven to be able to offer a high quality service in a range of levels throughout their ageing journey. I would like to be able to hand over to a provider who can offer our staff good, secure working conditions and similar rates of pay to what they receive now at council. This does seem like the logical way to go. But to have that influence over the choice of a new provider means that we need to make a decision to opt out tonight. However, I do still have questions. If we do hand over to a not-for-profit provider, who will monitor the quality of care standards? Will the state government and the federal government set up an independent regulatory body to ensure that older residents are actually receiving the quality of care that they need? What about the cost to clients? Who will ensure that providers don't add exorbitant administrative costs on top of fees? There is something that doesn't quite sit right about an organisation making profits from aged care services. Will the market-driven model mean a better service for clients, or will providers just end up cutting costs and therefore the quality of the service just so they can stay competitive? I just wonder if the market-driven model is actually a better way to get quality services. But regardless of what decision we make tonight, there will be changes in the way aged care is delivered. And we hope that it will be for the better. We need to provide a safe, dignified and holistic service for our valued older members of our community. And it will be sad if after tonight Hepburn Shire is no longer able to play a part in this. As Don says, we've done a pretty good job according to the feedback we get. But maybe instead we can focus on how we can support our older community in their ageing journey in other ways. We can provide a helping hand through the confusing array of services, technology and assessment processes. And maybe we can spend more money on activities and facilities in the Shire that help people to connect, to stay fit and stay healthy. But most importantly, we must not sit idly by. We must hold them to account. And as it says in our principles and values statement, and as it now says in the new motion, in point 15, Council will act as an advocate for the needs of the community and will hold accountable Commonwealth and state governments and the appointed home support providers for the delivery of quality services to the Hepburn community. That is what we can do, and I'll do my best to hold Council to that promise.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion tonight? And if not, we will move to the vote.
Do I have a right of reply?
Oh, sorry, right of reply, Councillor Hewitt. Had that on the list.
Yeah, look, I don't really have anything to say except to thank you all for your participation in the debate. I hope that those who are here and those who are watching really understand that we have, whatever we decide, whatever our individual views are, we have all as a councillor group and the officers too, Lee, Fran, the people involved, Bradley, have taken this really seriously and thought long and hard and not just accepted what they were given, but really critiqued it, thought about it. And for that, I thank officers for the information that they've given us and the time they've put into briefing. And I thank my fellow councillors for the seriousness with which whatever we decide, we've all put in to whatever view we've come to.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. I will put it to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Simpson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Bray, Councillor Dryley, Councillor Hewitt and Councillor Hood. All those against? Councillor Henderson, and that motion is carried.
I'd like to call a division, Mr Mayor.
Certainly. Councillor Henderson called a division, so we'll do another vote and it recounts. So all those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Simpson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Bray, Councillor Dryley, Councillor Hood, Councillor Hewitt in favour. All those against? Councillor Henderson is against.
You struggled there to win, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. All right. We move on now to the appointment, item 12.2, which is the appointment of members to the LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee. And I'd like to introduce Councillor Halliday to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, but for those who've come in a little bit later, the LGBTI Advisory Committee was first proposed back in February of last year and was approved for funding in May of last year. A public expression of interest process was advertised from December to January, and we've had 6 applications which have been received and assessed with a panel of council officers, and I had a chance to review it also. All the applications met the advertised criteria, and all applicants have been recommended for appointment as members of the advisory committee. The committee can have up to 10 members, and my councillor colleagues, as well as the council officers and myself, have noticed that there is a little bit of an imbalance with the members that have applied so far. We are keen to get it a little bit more diversity on the committee. So once the advisory committee is established, we will be going out again for a second round of expressions of interest to try and get a little bit more diversity on the committee. And there's 4 more positions to fill. So if anyone's watching and you're keen, we will be advertising that probably over the next couple of months. So that's probably about it. Everyone else has probably read the agenda and knows.
Would you like to read the recommendation?
I can read the recommendation. Yep. So the recommendation is that council appoints the following community members to the LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee for a 4-year term. Mr. Max Primmer, Belinda Brain, Mr. Dean Whalen, Mr. Ian McKnight, Mr. Lyle Brooks, and Mr. Taz. Now I know why you wanted me to read that. Mr. Taz Mustafaradis, and I apologise profusely, I've probably mispronounced that. And 2, following the initial establishment of the committee, a second expression of interest round will be advertised in order to meet the number of community representatives indicated within the terms of reference to enhance the diversity of representation on the committee.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. You got a question, Councillor Henderson?
So I do have a question and I do it a little bit reluctantly, but on here I noticed the names. We've got Mr. Dean Whelan, Mr. Ian McKnight, Mr. Lyle Perks and Belinda Brain. That doesn't tell me what any of these people identify as. So maybe that's a clarification. When we say there's no diversity on there, we don't know that because some of these people might identify quite differently. So a moot point.
Am I allowed to speak to that? I know it's not exactly kosher, but
Maybe in,
McCallum first.
yeah, we'll go to officer first. So there's a question there. Thanks,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gum.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Councillor Henderson, it's a good point you make. The names that are included in the council report are representative of how the applicants identified in the application process. And that's why some have a salutation and some do not. So in respect of the applicants, we have populated based on the application form.
I was going to say something very similar, so.
Do we have other questions? So if there are no other questions, we do have the officer's recommendation and which Councillor Halliday read out, but I think she elaborated a little bit in terms of the position that might come down when we're in this, speaking to the motion. So strictly speaking, there's no reference, as Councillor Henderson pointed out, to the appropriateness or the diversity of the committee at this point. But I'm in search of a motion. Do we have a mover of motion? Councillor Halliday, second of the motion?
Yeah.
Yep, so Councillor Henderson. Councillor Halliday, would you like to speak to the motion now?
I will just quickly, I feel like I've covered things, but in the applications, as Don said, from reading the agenda, people probably can't tell how people identify. But I can sort of say that we don't have any bisexual representation, any trans representation, asexual, intersex. So we're missing a whole raft of people on there, but the people who have nominated are, I think wonderful representatives of the community, and I don't want to take away from them. But yeah, I'm in support of the motion. I think this is a wonderful thing for Hepburn Shire to establish, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Just to be clear, you're supporting the recommended
I
motion.
am, yes.
And councillor Henderson?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Not much more needs to be said. I just wanted to cover that little point off, and that's been well adequately explained, and good on these people for stepping forward and coming on a committee to try and make things easier for us. That's what committees do. They give us good advice, sometimes in areas that we're not so sure of, and that's why we have a committee. And we would aim, I would hope, for this motion, given the second point, we might be able to further expand that to make it even more representative of the people that we're trying to get advice from. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Would anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? If not, I will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that's carried unanimously. Moving on to item 13.1, which is a quarterly finance report, October to December 2021. And I'd like to introduce councillor Hood to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, officers have prepared the financial statements, as the Mayor said, for the first half year, this financial year, to the period to 31 December. As is always the case with financial statements, there's lots of detail there and lots of notes. And I know, councillors, that we've pored over these reports several times. I will point out, though, particularly for the benefit of members of the community, 3 points. The financial performance, of course, as is the case for all of council's operations, has been heavily influenced by the storms in the middle of last year, the flooding in Creswick and Clunes in January of this year, and of course, COVID. Those 3 things are consuming much of council's resources, human and financial. So in that regard, the fact that council is progressing reasonably well against its capital works project is quite notable and remarkable, and management should be congratulated for not only managing to handle those 3 crises, but keep the capital works moving along. Similarly, the reports indicate that in the 6 months to December, council spent $4.8 million on all sorts of recovery works on those 2 storms, but only received $4.1 million in disaster relief funding. So even for just the first 6 months, that had a $700,000 unbudgeted adverse cash impact on council. And the third element that really sticks out in this financial report is the unrestricted cash position. And for those not knowledgeable in this area, councils determine cash to be either restricted or unrestricted. And if it's restricted, then it's typically grant funding and the money is tied to a specific purpose. If it's unrestricted, then it's available for council to spend as it sees fit on behalf of the community and to provide somewhat of a buffer against these emergencies that happen increasingly frequency. And this report indicates that the unrestricted cash position at 31 December is negative $2.7 million, which obviously will require much attention and correction by council to get that back into the black. Negative cash is an interesting concept, and it overhangs us and the expectations of our community to deliver services. I commend this report for our attention, councillors.
Thank you, councillor Hood. Do we have any questions? Councillor Bragg.
Sorry. My question just is a follow-up on what councillor Hood has just mentioned. If we have a negative cash position, I'll just ask the CEO, does that mean we are able to pay our bills?
Thanks, councillor. Yes, we can pay our bills. We're paying all supplies within current terms and conditions. What it does mean is we need to be really careful in terms of delivery of services and programs going forward. We do have a significant cash reserve, but that is allocated for particular projects into the future. So before we deliver all those projects and spend all our money that's put away for sort of reserves, we need to undertake the repair that we're doing to the budget as well. But currently we're able to pay all bills to staff, to contractors in line with all requirements.
Thank you, Mr Thomas. Any other questions from councillors? Yes, councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. My question to management is regarding the $700,000 impact that we've had in the first half year, recovering from the various storms and events. What is the best estimate for what the impact will be for the full financial year to 30 June 22?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hood, for that question. And the current estimate at the mid-year prediction will be that council will be around $1.02 million, a shortfall in funding there, as a result of the storm activities, which we won't be able to recoup. At this stage, councillors, we are basing our estimates on around about a 10% recovery or a 90% funding, whichever way you want to look at it. But there will be a shortfall that's been estimated as $1.02 million.
Sorry, councillor Henderson.
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you. Just in relation to that shortfall, are there any ways that we can, to government or government authorities or agencies, to be able to get some funds that, aside from relief funds, funds that we may be able to use, that we can somewhat reduce that debt? There may be opportunities come up where where we have to repair something where we could have another project underway, able to get funding to help reduce that shortfall.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Henderson, for your question. Council will and officers will continue to explore every opportunity to access funding to support and reduce that shortfall. We have a strong advocacy document before government right now with a view to identifying projects that will help our community to recover from these events, which are significant and have had a major impact on our community. So we will do all that we can to identify those funding opportunities.
Through Mr Mayor, if I can just add to the response from Mr Burgess to say that there wouldn't be a week go by and some weeks not a day go by where we're not having those conversations with the various levels of government and with the various response agencies such as BRV. So we continue to advocate Hepburn's position and the financial strain that these incidents have put us under, but we also continue to have discussions very, very frequently with all members of government and all members of different agencies around supporting particularly the Trentham community, where some of that funding has not been available on private property, which is a little bit different to the Creswick scenario with the flood events, where a little bit more support is available. Not enough, but a little more than what's been experienced in Trentham. So those discussions are happening, if not daily, certainly multiple times every week by various parts of our executive team.
Thank you, Mr Lucas. Do we have any other questions? No, I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Hood.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A slight modification to the officer's recommendation. One, that we note the financial position and performance for the 6 months ending 31 December.
We have that on the screen.
Yep. So really just changing the first word to notes.
Maybe just read the second part out too.
That we note the operating and capital works project reports effective 31 December, noting that the project reports will be placed on council's website.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Do I have a seconder of that motion? Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Hood?
Only to further remark, Mr Mayor, that we are fortunate that our current management team have been particularly successful in securing grant funding for all sorts of projects in recent times. So that gives us some confidence going forward. Secondly, I think the public should be reassured based on these numbers, that council's efforts to address the various events that have been inflicted upon us, we have not limited ourselves to the grant funding and the disaster relief funding that's been thrown our way. We've been given $4.1 million, but we've spent 4.8, and we're not holding back in recovering on behalf of the community. So I think those two things are noteworthy, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Hood. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to the motion? No? Anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And that's carried. We're moving on to the item 13.2, which is the 21-22 mid-year budget review. And again, I invite councillor Hood to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor. This report follows naturally from the previous one. As is normally the case, management have conducted a mid-financial year review, and particularly under the circumstances that we've find ourselves in, that we've just described. This report not only identifies a number of savings, and that they will be achieved through either deferring some projects or scrapping them altogether, but it also allows for some unforeseen events to be funded as well. So there's a bit each way. It does generate a net saving. And as we just commented, with the unrestricted cash being as troublesome as it is, this sort of corrective action was much needed. And I do note that this is the second time in 12 months that this council has taken upon itself such a repair work to the financials, and that's the responsible thing to do. So I commend these changes to the budget, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Hood. Do we have any questions, councillors? No, in that case, I'm in search of a mover of a motion. Councillor Hood, the motion is?
The officer's recommendation.
Can you do the notes? Okay, so we've got the council approves the mid-year budget adjustments as detailed in the tables below. And do I have a seconder of that motion? Councillor Halliday. Speaking for councillor Hood.
I don't think I really need to say anything much further, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Halliday, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would. The reason I wanted to quickly speak to the motion was for people of my ward to clarify the changes. So you'll note that the Clunes Walkability Project has been cancelled. I'd like to assure you it hasn't been completely cancelled. It's more postponed until we've done the walking and cycling strategy, and then it'll be back in the budget. The next one is the Clunes Recreation Reserve Master Plan. I'm excited that we've actually got a little bit extra in the budget because the master plan needed more than what it was originally given. It's taken a long time, but it's coming, and I'm very excited about that. And the last one was the Clunes Town Hall restoration. Now, that was in the budget, and it looks like we've taken it out, but it was always the intention that we were going to try and get funding for that. So that hasn't actually changed. We're sort of playing around with numbers, but the intention to get government funding for that project hasn't changed, and that project will still go ahead. An item that isn't on here is part of the Clunes Streetscape. It has been changed from Clunes Streetscape to investigating crossings in Clunes to help with improving the safety on Fraser Street. So that hopefully will be coming up in the next financial year as well. Thank you.
Councillor Halliday, would any other councillors like to speak to or against? Yes, Councillor Bray.
Yeah, just briefly, I just wanted to thank the team for doing the work on the budget to keep working towards getting council into a healthier financial position. I just wanted to point out, and I hope I've got this correct me if I'm wrong, but with the work that the financial team have done, the budget would have had a $2.5 million potential savings. However, with the storm recovery out-of-pocket expenses, we are now looking at a 1.526202, so $1,526,202 of savings, if that's correct.
Correct.
Just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Bray. Anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? No. In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 13.3, which is the record of councillor attendance. I'd like to introduce this report. The purpose of this report is for council to receive and note records of councillor attendance, formerly known as assemblies of councillor records, required to be presented under provisions of the Local Government Act 1989. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us, and that is that council receives and notes the records of councillor attendance as detailed in the report, noting the updated version of the record for councillor briefing on 22nd of February 2022 as circulated. Do we have any questions on that? No? On that basis, on search a motion,
Mr. Mayor.
councillor Henderson, officer's recommendation, and seconding, thank you, councillor Halliday. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried. Hang on. Yep, thank you, councillor Hewitt, unanimously. Now we move to item 14.1, which is general business. Thank you, councillor Halliday. He's leaving due to declared conflict of interest. So, councillors, we have a recommendation before us that Council 1 grants Councillor Tessa Halliday a leave of absence from the 26th of March 2022 to 26th of June 2022 inclusive, noting that under the Local Government Act 2020, Section 35(6)(a), a councillor is not to be taken to be absent from a council meeting during the period of 6 months after the councillor or their spouse or domestic partner becomes the natural parent of a child. And 2, appoints the following councillors to the listed committees, boards and external bodies for the period of councillor Halliday's leave, which is A, councillor Jem Bray to the LGBTIQA+ Advisory Committee, councillor Tim Dryley to the Public Art Committee, councillor Leslie Hewitt to the Hepburnshire Health and Wellbeing Working Group, and councillor Brian Hood to the Sustainable Hepburn Community Reference Group. Are there any questions, councillors? No. In that case, I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Henderson.
Happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Seconding that, councillor Bray. Would anyone like to speak to the motion?
Yes, just briefly, I think we should all note that it's very good to see our councillors going off on a new journey in her life, and I think that's very good. In my day, they used to call it confinement leave, but I can assure you, Mr. Mayor, she's not going to jail. So whether you call it paternity leave, maternity leave, or confinement leave, for sure she's not going to be not going to jail. So I commend the recommendation to council. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Councillor Bray.
And I think we all share the sentiment that we all wish Councillor Halliday all the very best, as CEO Bradley Thomas also mentioned, that we wish her a very wonderful birth and a lovely time with her new baby in the future, and I'm sure we'll all be there for her.
Thank you, councillor Bray. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hey.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt.
I'm just going to make a political point, really, and whilst I share the congratulations and best wishes for Councillor Halliday, I think her pregnancy and forthcoming birth is a good opportunity for us as councillors to reflect on gender equity and what we can do to support her as a way of encouraging and supporting more women to come onto and stay on council. So council does have is in the process of developing a gender equity plan, have a gender equity advisory committee, and it's an opportunity for all of us to contribute to that from that point of view. So I do wish her well, but I would like to make that point. Yeah.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the motion? No. In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thanks. Mr. Thomas? We'll just Councillor Halliday to rejoin our meeting. Well, the good news is, Councillor Halliday, that you have been granted your parental leave. So congratulations. And I'd like to just take a lot. Good idea. Wish you all the well, and but a number of councillors have just spoken on that matter, and I reiterate that those,
Thank you so much.
sentiments. And yes, I wouldn't drop that.
Unexpected. Thank you very much.
All right, so we're now moving to item 16, which is the closed council meeting. And this will be a closure of the meeting to members of the public. Councillors, I acknowledge that there are two confidential matters that council will need to consider tonight, outlined in the confidential ordinary council meeting agenda for 15th of March 2022. Councillors, I'm seeking a motion to close the meeting to the public pursuant to section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020. Please note that should a motion be carried to move the meeting into confidential, then the gallery will be closed. Thanks, everyone. The meeting will cease to be live streamed, and this meeting from this point on will not be available for the community to view and or record. So the recommendation is, do we have a motion?
Per the officer's recommendation.
Officer's recommendation. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Seconder, Councillor Halliday. All those, I'm assuming there's no one wanting to speak to the motion at the moment. All those in favour? Carried. And we now go into confidential.
For